What up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be reviewing Horizon Zero Dawn, the board game, published by Steamforged Games and designed by Sherwin Matthews. Now I'm going to toss it over to Julie, who will tell you more about the game itself.
First, we'd like to thank Steamforged for sending us this review copy. Always appreciative of the support of the channel, but we'd like to remind our viewers that our opinion will remain our own. So, what is this game? It is a cooperative or semi-cooperative game that is for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and above, and plays in 60 to 90 minutes.
Yeah, you can play it, as Julie mentioned, both modes. The primary mode is the semi-cooperative mode. The variant rules are at the back of the rulebook if you'd like to play this as a co-op. So, what will you be doing in this game? Well, it is set in the far future, a post-apocalyptic future of Horizon Zero Dawn, which is available for PlayStation. So this was produced under a license from PlayStation. You will be taking on the role of a tribesman of the 4 tribes that are present in the game. So you can either be the Nora Marksman, the Bannock Survivor, the Osam Forge Smith, or the Karja Warrior. And each of them is going to play just a little bit differently, have different skills and different weapons that they will be using. What you'll then be doing is going on a hunt. You're going to be hunting a specific beast. In the core game, it's going to be the sawtooth that you can see on the cover. To get to that beast, you're going to be going through different encounters. You're going to be playing a total of 5 encounters, 4 of them that lead up to facing off against the sawtooth. There's also the event deck, which is there, and the player in last place will be able to draw some events that will, kind of start shifting the tide of battle in their favor. But this is a semi-cooperative game, so you're not always working together on this hunt. You're trying to get the most glory, and by defeating the monsters, you're going to get more glory, more salvage, and hopefully be the most powerful hunter and the most famous hunter when you go back to the Hunter's Lodge after catching the sawtooth. I think I've talked enough about the game.
I think it's time to grab our drinks.
Yes. Grab our best friend.
We're going to take it to the table one more time.
One more time.
Am I going to cream you again?
I don't know, but we're supposed to be playing on the same team this time. Creaming me? Jeez. She loves beating me. Now we can take a quick look at the components for Horizon Zero Dawn, the board game. As you can see, there are a lot of decks of cards and things like that, so I had to put the miniatures on top of the game board. So we'll take a look at those right after we check out the rule book. So you do have a very nice rule book. Layout is good. I have very few issues with it. There's a couple things that I'm not the biggest fan of, but I will discuss it as we go through the components. Now, it does seem like it's a very, very long rulebook at 50 pages, but everything flows very well. And there's a handy-dandy quick reference guide on the back. So we're going to start taking a look at the enemies. Here we've got the Sawtooth miniature, which is very detailed. The minis are absolutely fantastic. We've got the Shellwalker here. We have the Strider. Very cool. The Watcher. A little trickier to see this one because of the size. The Grazer. And then finally, the Scrapper. So all very detailed. Here you've got the enemy cards, which will tell you their health, their armor, salvage value, glory points, and counterpoints. It also explains here what components you can destroy. And on the back, just has a little bit more information about the Cargo Defender. So what will happen. So just a little bit more details about the enemies. But we've got that for each and every enemy. And now not every enemy will have components, as you can see. Some really just one-sided. So those are the enemies. Next we've got the different player characters that you get in the core game. We've got the Osam Forge Smith here. We have, I believe this is the Karja Warrior. We've got the Nora Marksman and the Bannock Survivor. Now, all these minis are pretty cool, but I must say that they don't have the same level of detail and they're not quite as clear as the enemies. You're really getting what I feel like is a superior cast and superior miniatures with the enemies. I don't know if it's because of the size. There's plenty of detail on them, but it also could be the color. They just don't pop quite as much. Now here we have the decks for each of the characters. We're going to look only at one of the decks. So you can see you have the Forge Smith. Then you've got each of these cards with the symbol, like we're out of circles. This is your starting equipment. You've got some traits. Here you've got your path for leveling up, some specific cards you can get when you level up, and then all these zero cost cards will make up that core starting deck that you'll be using. Also, when we're talking about decks of cards, we've got enemy behavior cards. So each enemy will have a minimum of one. The Shellwalker and the Sawtooth have decks, so you'll shuffle them up and draw one. Now that wasn't quite clear in the rulebook and was my major complaint about it, but you can see just the different effects for each of the enemies. So as you can see, everyone's got their own decks. We've got the enemy decks. Here's a salvage. So in the salvage deck, you may get different shards or things like ruined parts, ancient necklace, some special items that can only come up once during a hunt. Those special ones will be discarded, whereas any metal shards and resources spent will end up going back into the deck. Now, all those resources are spent to buy different equipment. You got level 1, level 2, level 3 equipment. We'll start looking by the cool stuff. So you've got different ammo types, armor types, modifications, upgraded weapons. As you can see, you've got just random items. And there's going to be a specific amount of each setup. You've even got the Shadow Rattler. And this is actually a problem because the Rattler ammo isn't actually in the game. So you can't use this. I believe it has something to do with the Kickstarter exclusives. I'll have to look into it more. If I do have some more detailed response, I'll add it down below in the comment section. So you get an idea as to the different things that you can buy. Resist melee weave, that's modification for your armor. So everything that you're going to need to upgrade your characters and be just an overall badass. And that's level 1. Level 2, you go up to level 3. Here we've got the leader and fledgling tokens, which come into play with a semi-cooperative mode of the game. The leader just dictates who starts. The fledgling character will potentially be able to use the event deck. Well, not potentially, they will use the event deck, which can give them some extra abilities, a little extra oomph in the following encounter. Here we've got the encounter deck, which is divided up into 3 levels. Red is level 3, level 2, and level 1. So you draw 3 cards from the deck, and then you decide where you're going. So you're always going to start with a yellow, essentially. Then you have the chance to go up to level 2 and then level 3. The hunt will always end with the Hunter's Call, which will be the final hunt when you're playing the game, and this will be the enemy that you're going to face off against will be the Sawtooth. This will trigger them to spawn. You have the details of how they're going to spawn and anything that's going to be on the map at the bottom of the card. Here we've got the different dice. We've got the black die, which has a lot of crits on it, so ideally you want to roll a black die when you've got some cool crit abilities. Then you've got the arrows, which mark hits. The triple hit is on the blue, but the orange has the crit. Here we've got the glory points, which are double-sided. They're either 1 or 5. Those are the values. This represents a damaged machine, which you can salvage for 3 of these cards. You have either the ruins or the rocks. They each do different things. You can find out more about that in the rulebook. Here we have just the alert token. These are the tokens that go with your skill sheet. We've got the half moon, full moon, the blazing moon. Actually, sorry, these are all suns. I think it's moon because my son loves the moon, and this is half. You'll get points for these at the end of the game when you're playing a semi-cooperative game. You have the different condition tokens. Now they're all double-sided. So just double check to see what they are. You have damage and values of 5 and 1, also double-sided. Then these are the components to mark damage. So if you, for example, destroyed component B, you put the red side up. If you've done at least half damage to it, making it easier to damage, you'd put the blue side on the enemy card. So as we've taken a look at everything else, the last thing to take a look at are the tiles. So we'll move the minis off the tiles, and the game comes with a set of 6 starting tiles. You can tell right up there. Now, this is the 1 to 2 player side. The other side is for 3 to 4 players. You've got markings for where things will spawn, terrain such as tall grass, things that may show up in the tall grass, and you've got these 6 different tiles for the game. So there you have it. These are all of the components that you get in Horizon Zero Dawn, the board game. Now, we're not going to be doing a how to play. Because of some of the issues with the rulebook, I reviewed a few different how to play videos. One that I recommend is the Becca Scott's one with the Good Time Society. Really enjoyed that one. So as it's been done so well, we're not going to rehash it. Now Julie and I are going to be coming back at you with our review of the game. So Julie, what did you think of Horizon Zero Dawn, the board game? We played it semi-co-op, we've played it co-op, we've tried each of the characters, not both of us, but overall we've played every character in the game. Really eager to hear your thoughts.
Well, it's a cool, there's some pretty cool minis. There's some pretty elaborate, are they monsters? I'm not sure.
They're machines. They are machines that have become basically monsters in wildlife. If you know the world of Horizon Zero Dawn, if you don't, I'll give you just a brief rundown right now. Far future, 31st century, disaster involving machines that led to a post-apocalyptic future. So you got subsistence humans running around fighting giant machines. There you go. That's a summary of the world.
So it's a miniature game with basically battles and dice. So
yeah, it's really a tactical miniatures game where you're moving around trying to use the terrain and things to your advantage in order to be the most glorious hunter.
So I'm going to say I had 2 very different experiences with this game. The first time when we played, I had the Nora Marksman.
Yep.
And I actually quite enjoyed it. I was getting lucky with my rolls. I was getting lucky with the cards that were coming up at the marketplace. A lot of it was pertinent for me. And it was just going really well. And I could see, a couple little issues, but, when things are going your way, it's not so bad. The game's not so bad.
But one thing I want to point out is that the Nora Marksman and the Bannock Survivor, which is a character we don't have, neither of those characters are in front of us right now, they both use bows. So there is an abundance of bows available in the market deck.
Yeah, so I just felt that we got a lot of components. It doesn't hurt that I also was rolling pretty well that
yeah, you were one-shotting enemies left, right, and center and getting all the glory when we're playing semi-cooperatively. So
yeah,
she won.
Handedly too. So that game was it was fun. The last game that we played though, I was played the
Karja Warrior, and I'm the Osearm Forged Smith.
Not nearly as much fun. Her sling is really
the starting sling is very weak.
Very weak compared to the bow that the Nora Marksman got.
But your starting melee weapon was really strong.
Yeah, but against what we were playing with, it wasn't strong enough to really, and not really strong enough to really get anything. Anyways, nothing was coming my way in this game. So,
but you also, you have this really cool card, Positioning, and I'm only bringing that up because there's a negative that I want to get into, and I'm just showcasing that. The Silent Strike's a cool card because it's going to factor into some of the big negatives for the game.
So go ahead. So yes, there's a Silent Strike. Didn't really feel like it was that great in this game that we played. Because
when you're playing 2 players, I find the game is less tactical than it would be at higher player count because enemies aren't necessarily moving around quite as much. So setting things up like your abilities is far more difficult in a 2-player game because if you're starting out and have no tall grass around you, setting up to take out an enemy when they move into the range of a Silent Strike where you have to be starting in the tall grass to hit them is going to be very difficult, especially when we're trying to defeat all the enemies before they run off the map.
Yeah, so this last game, I lived the actual opposite of the first game. I didn't have the best equipment, and I wasn't rolling nearly well enough to be able to do anything significantly. And the marketplace just really wasn't going my way. And even the little bit of salvage that I got was just basically basic metal shards. I wasn't ever getting. You were pulling the trophies and things. So
I got some nice stuff.
Bottom line, even when at one point I was able to get a bunch of shards, enough basically salvage to be able to buy something in the marketplace, and there was nothing that made any sense for me. Nothing that I could equip my sling with. Nothing that I could, so that's a negative I would say about this game, that based on the randomness of the cards that come up in the marketplace, you could have absolutely nothing that can help you upgrade your weapons or your skills.
And that also goes into what I was talking about with the semi-cooperative nature. This game feels very much designed for 3 to 4 players. Because if you're playing a 4-player game, the issue we're having with the marketplace, the way things actually cycle through, where someone buys something, then you replace it, the cards should be cycling fairly quickly, or at least enough that, maybe 2 of the bows get bought. Okay, finally the sling's gonna show up. But that doesn't happen at 2 players. You can deal out the cards and be like, there's nothing that I really want. So that definitely is a bit of a problem. And playing at 2 players, I'd have to say, I don't think I would play with the Karja Warrior again, because I felt that when you were playing with the Nora Marksman and I had the Banuk Survivor, there was enough stuff coming out for bows that you're pretty much going to get something that you need if you play by the rules. Also, the OCR Forged Smith does melee damage and just has the cards hit like a truck right off the bat. If you can get a couple of extra tripwires and stuff just to go in your trip caster, you don't need to get the upgraded one. I got the upgraded one, it was nice. But just the regular one can be powerful enough that when you smash something into your trap and kill it, well, there you go. You're doing well. So that also leads to the point where I don't think all characters are necessarily quite created equal. At least they don't come across equal unless you're playing a full player count game.
Yeah, and I mean, I like the idea that, at every round you're picking, you get a little bit of flexibility at how you can upgrade, but one of the issues that I had is because this really wasn't going my way. Yes, you can add in some stamina into your deck, but at the end, you're moving up to a 22 card deck. But you have a maximum of 6 stamina. I hadn't been able to buy enough to be able to put in my deck that I had less cards because I had my max number of stamina, which was kind of, working against me, especially, yes, it's there from a, soak up damage perspective, but not so great when, you're picking your hand and you pick out 3 stamina and,
Exactly, because you weren't getting the ammo or the upgrades that you could slot into your deck to basically fill those slots. So that's one of the things where I think that when we play this again as a 2-player game, I'm probably going to go through these and slim them down to make sure that we're going to get stuff that's really only relevant for the characters that we're playing. Now, it could be pretty cool to go from a bow to a tripcaster. The problem is the way your character's decks are built in terms of ammo, you're not going to have enough stuff going one way or the other, because you're not going to necessarily be able to buy enough cards to fill your deck to replace all of your arrows with the ammo for a sling or another ranged weapon, or suddenly switch everything to go with a melee weapon. So it's just one of those things to consider, that I like the game design. I like what it's doing. I like the models, but it just doesn't quite all come together as a 2-player game. Now, I really preferred playing cooperatively with 2 players because we're at least working together, and that was a lot of fun. I like the fact that we can use glory points to heal each other. It does, I think, take the difficulty level of the game and scale it down because you can heal each other a lot easier, so you're going to just have less trouble fighting the enemies. It also makes it more valuable to potentially take out, well, actually it makes it less valuable to take out components, because that's one thing I do want to discuss, the component aspect of these enemies, where you can disable some of their abilities by shooting and disabling the components. It does make it good to do potentially because you want to help each other out, but the glory points that you're getting may not necessarily outweigh the damage. In a semi-cooperative game, if you don't think you're going to get enough damage to defeat an enemy, you can at least take out a component and get a glory point. You're not getting the salvage or any of the fun stuff that comes with it to upgrade your character, but at least you can get a little bit of something. But I didn't really like that either. I felt that we were hitting too hard for the components to come into play as much as I would have liked. But it's a great adaptation of the video game mechanics to the tabletop. How did you feel about the components and things like that?
It felt when I was playing with Nora, it didn't make sense, and with the Karja warrior, I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess I'll hit a component because that's all I could do. So, but most of the time, all that would happen is, I hit the components and then you kill it, and then you get the glory points, giving you all the shards, giving you more. So yes, it's cooperative, but it ends up with you getting a whole bunch of equipment that I can't buy. So, I mean, it's cooperative, but it's not in that regard. So it's
because you're not sharing all of the resources together. And that's the issue with the cooperative modes. It feels a little bit bolted on. It works in the system, but what you're primarily doing is taking things out, such as the event deck, which actually I think was a really cool catch-up element for the semi-cooperative mode. You've got the leader and the fledgling, so the person that's in last place after an encounter, they then get a special bonus. That could be, kind of a little bit of a screw you to some of the other hunters, or it can just give them bonuses. It's a really neat element. I like the way it works. But at 2 players, it wasn't nearly as fun. I really think that the next time this comes out, at least for the base game, we're going to be playing this at 3 or 4 players. I can't really see us necessarily playing just a core game at 2 players again. Well, we talked about what didn't work with the game. I want to talk also about the good things, what worked very well. As Julie mentioned, the upgrade tree works very well. When the right cards are coming out, you're upgrading your deck, swapping out cards, customizing your deck. It's very smooth, easy to do. The encounter system is very cool, where you've got to draw from the top of the draw the encounter cards. You draw 3 essentially, and you'll pick one. So eventually you'll get to harder and harder encounters, which will allow you to level up more and get better gear. Setting up the encounters are actually fairly quick. You got to move around the tiles, place them, and then set up the enemies. I like that, and I really like the feel of just slowly going through the progression. The way that the points and the scoring works for a semi-cooperative game, I thought was really well done as well. I don't know why we've got like half moons and other things like that just give you different points. I'm sure it has to do with the video game mechanics. I like the scoring, but I think it was one of those areas where maybe you should not try to adapt the video game to the tabletop as much and potentially just focus on making a better game. Just give the 3 victory points. Maybe you have the sun around it, but it's worth 5, and just have the 5 there. It makes things a little bit clearer. But I did like the way everything worked. And then I love the miniatures. Like, this shell walker looks very cool. It's incredibly detailed. I really wanted to go in on the Kickstarter to get all these cool, amazing, awesome miniatures from the game, but finally the cost was just too high, and luckily now we got a review copy, so I get a chance to still experience the game. Also, the cooperative mode wasn't fully developed, and I was worried that may be something that would hinder my enjoyment of the game. And while it didn't hinder it as much as I thought, it's definitely not at the level that I would have been necessarily like super stoked about a rather large Kickstarter purchase. So what did you enjoy about the game?
Well, I had already said the things that I liked.
I'm just wondering if there's anything else that popped
No,
into my mind.
I don't have anything else to add.
And the one thing I didn't want to say, the video game art and iconography, like that was one of the things that we hated about Bloodborne, the board game. Used very well here in this. Just the images that were picked, they stand out, they're clear. probably because the graphics are great in Horizon Zero Dawn, it's not like muddled. So everything works very well and it's easy to understand.
I wasn't a big fan of looking at this though. It seemed a little overwhelming to me. I mean, I get it. Now we got used to it. We played with it. But when we sat down at the table, I'm like, I don't like this. I like the other cards, but this part of it I didn't like as much.
So I think there's a fun game in here. There's a solid system, but one point that I want to mention is you only get the one enemy. You get the guy that's over here. You get one hunt. It's called the Hunter's Call. It's for the Sawtooth. You're always going to be ending with the same enemy, and that's what you're getting in this base box. And I've got to admit, in terms of replayability, that is a little lacking. I do see the bones of a workable system here, but with what you're getting in just this core box, I feel like you're going to need expansions. Normally, we'd be actually letting the game breathe a little bit before we go into a review, but I really want to keep going with Horizon because we've got the Stormbird and the Thunderjaw expansions. So see that review coming out next week because we want to play some of the big, iconic monsters, fight them, hunt them down that are part of the video game. And I'm really wondering if that's going to change our overall experience and how we're going to feel about Horizon Zero Dawn, not just the core box, but as like, you know, something that you want to buy, get a few boxes and invest in and have a good time with. Because right now we're just reviewing the core game and I'm very curious what Julie's going to say. I got to have my own opinions on it, but I wish it was going to be a higher score than it's going to be. I don't think I've got too much more to add. Is there anything else you want to add there, Julie?
Nope.
So what is your score for Horizon Zero Dawn, the board game?
Combining my first playthrough that was fun with this one, it averages out at a 6.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you. I think this is a 6. I would have been probably persuaded to go to a 7 if you can find this with the Kickstarter exclusive box, which I know has some more hunts, more characters. You're probably going to have like a game that's a 7. You'll have a very solid game, but it's really probably going to shine when you get the bigger miniatures to the table. So I think you got a good system, you got a good bones of a game here, but the core box is definitely a little lacking and not something that I could necessarily recommend and say, hey, this is a must grab, or if you pick this up, you're going to love it. I can see this going very much 50-50 in the either direction. Also with the semi-co-op, I mean, one of the things we neglected to mention, but I want to make sure we hit it right now in our final thoughts, is hitting the big enemy at the end is not necessarily advantageous. Sometimes you're better to just sit there and go, I'm not attacking because I'll let you try to make the big hit, get all the glory, and if you mess up, I'm going to swoop in for the kill to get the victory points. Now, hitting components can fix that, but when we were playing on a 2-player game, it's really obnoxious. It just doesn't work, and I wish there was a little bit better system to have fleshed out a way to play it 2 players. I think if there was a better system, this could even go up higher between, towards like an 8. But right now it's what we got, 6, and I'm happy with that.
So now it's time to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And take a look down below in the video description. You can find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see pictures of Julie and I playing Horizon Zero Dawn, the board game, there'll be plenty on those feeds. Also down there is a link to multizone.ca, so if you're looking for a copy of the game, make sure to check them out. You'll get 10% off your next purchase, and it's a great way to support the channel, as a portion of that purchase is returned to us. And then popping up in front of me are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. In front of me will be our most recent release, and in front of Julie is going to be... what should it be? Well, it'll take you to our review of the other expansions once we get those done, since it'll only be a week away. And on that note, we now need to
grab our drinks,
grab our best friend and fellow hunter, rival hunter, fellow hunter. Depends on the game we're playing.
and we're going to keep playing games.
Keep playing games. We're going to have some more Horizon Zero Dawn because it's getting back to the table, but this time we're going to have the really big minis, so it's going to be cool.